Formative assessment provides a framework for children to take responsibility for their own learning. It challenges teachers to manage a classroom in a different way. It's empowering the pupils to set their own agenda for their own education. It involves taking risks and allowing room for failure and recognising that these experiences are crucial to equipping the children for lifelong learning. The formative assessment framework includes defining with the children the learning intention, deciding by consensus their success criteria, designing with them the learning environment, which can mean facilitating them to work in groups, with learning partners, and enabling the children to use resources outside the classroom, and developing their learning through feedback. This feedback can occur from child to child as well as from child to teacher.
It's certainly right to suggest that teachers taking this on find they have to reinvent themselves. Some take to it very readily. It touches a nerve, it responds to some inner commitment they had to teaching in ways that make that commitment come good, and they take to it very quickly. Others have adopted a way of surviving in the classroom. After all, the first thing that worries new teachers is how to survive. They've adopted ways of surviving and working and find it pretty scary to have to abandon those, or it might look like abandoning those, in order to play out a different form of relationship with their pupils. That's a voyage of discovery, and it's not a voyage that's without perils or fears.
A school that's taken on these perils and fears and embraced formative assessment is Two Waters Primary in Hertfordshire, where teacher Julia Turner has been teaching a Year 6 revision lesson on light. The class is of mixed ability children, and 16% of them are from ethnic minority groups. Reviewing the lesson with Julia today is the assessment coordinator at Two Waters, Marzia Panju.
When did the children last meet this topic?
Last year, during Year 5, we encountered shadows and light. It's really important for them to know throughout the whole unit what is expected of them, so they can see where they should be, what they should already know, and where they could go to.
So if we just read through this, and we can see what we're looking for at the end of this unit, the end of these few lessons, this is where we will all be, okay?
The learning intention for today's lesson just highlights the areas I wanted from them. Most of it they should already have known, but I thought it was important that for them they just had a real focus.
I should recognise that light sources are seen when light enters the eye.
Although you drew up the success criteria, you're involving the children to be part of it as well.
It like comes off the mirror, it's like into your eyes and then like reflects back.
Okay, right, Year 6. We're going to put all of your ideas onto a mind map, okay?
Julia uses mind maps to focus the children on what they need to learn about light.
Right, let's see some of the things that you've been talking about. Jessica?
When there's light, if it hits an object, it will not go through, it will leave a shadow on the other side of the object.
Right, OK, so we've got shadows.
The mind map has involved the children in defining what they're going to learn.
In the way. Yeah, I think it's important for the children to understand that we're a learning group together, that I'm part of that group. I'm not just an outsider telling them what to do.
And it gives you an opportunity to bring in the learning that you want them to focus in for the day, especially. Yeah.
Right, so using our mind map, we're going to start working through today's session, OK? Our learning intention for today, which you do need down, is I will be able to explain that light travels from different sources, how it enters our eyes, and what happens if the light is blocked in any way. That's a huge learning intention, isn't it? Yeah. But we'll get all of that in today's session. So our success criteria, the things that you are going to be...
The learning intention for today's lesson just highlights the areas I wanted from them. Most of it they should already have known, but I thought it was important that for them they just had a real focus.
They're all the things you'll be able to measure your learning against, and the things that you'll be able to highlight later and say, I've got it, I'm nearly there, or I need to work a bit on this. I would like you to decide how you're going to go about this activity. What are you...
That's why you're sharing with them the success criteria one last time, isn't it, before they go, to make sure they're clear in their minds what they need to do, what resources they need to get, where they can find the resources.
How shadows are caused. That is the question. Right, you can choose your materials, you can choose how you're going to set it up. That is the question we'd like answered.
They're clear that all the time in any lesson, if they need something, they can go and get it. It's not just a case of what's on the table is all they can use.
Teachers show children how, by thinking about things differently or developing one of their ideas and not another, they can actually be more powerful, can achieve more and get new insights. And that involves them talking, responding, being listened to, and acting, making things, playing things, trying experiments, and so on. If they're simply sitting in rows rather neatly, attentively, with a performer up at the front there, well, it's easy to judge that. And it may look good to many, but to me, it's a sign of a weak or poor learning environment. In the average classroom with that style of teaching, research shows there are roughly about 7 or 8 pupils taking part, and the rest are sat at the back and around the edges keeping out of trouble and embarrassed if they're asked something, because they then produce a response which is off beam and the teacher doesn't know what to do with it, or the teacher's body language shows that they're stupid and got it all wrong. So you'll have a lot of disaffected pupils if you do that.
At Two Waters, involving the children in the process of learning has removed any disaffection by actively connecting them with their learning.
The children are working beautifully together there in groups, isn't it? And that gives you some time to move around and check on their learning and take them that one step further. You've really moved there from imparting knowledge to them to facilitating them to take themselves to the next step.
And we've only done like a couple of things that actually forms the shadow.
Right.
I don't need to be watching over them as closely or teaching them as closely.
Yes.
I can stand back and observe and listen and focus on.
That's right. It's interesting to see the way they're working in their pairs. I mean, because, you know, we start this at the bottom end of the school, and to come and see them working really beautifully well together there in Year 6. They've finished this part of the lesson, and now they're going back to the carpet. Do you want to explain a little bit, Gail?
Yes, I tend to bring them back to the carpet so that we can review what we have just done,
Yes.
clarify their learning, refer back to the learning intention and what we need to get out of the lesson. It's just a way of reviewing and refining and sorting
And
ourselves
for
out.
them identifying what they need to do in the next part of the lesson.
Right. What I'm going to ask you to do then is with your partner, discuss this, maybe find out about that, and then bring it all together in a poster on your own.
I like the way you asked them to talk to their partners to clarify what bits they had already covered and what bits they hadn't yet, and that
It's
helps
just to
to
make
anchor
sure-
their learning, isn't it?
yes.
Finding out for themselves which bit they've already sorted out.
The children are going to present their findings in the form of a poster and are discussing what information should be included and what the poster should look like.
Use like colourful words and bright pictures, colour pictures, use interesting words. Yeah, use interesting words to explain what the pictures are and everything. Yeah.
It's interesting to see that you've asked them how they're going to present that second bit of information.
Yes, I think it has to come from the children. I tell them what I want as an end product, what I would like to see, but it's important for them to say how they're going to get to that end product, because then their thinking is coming into place and they're free to go to the library, to use computers, to find out what they want and to use their preferred learning style. As long as they're telling me how to do it, they're thinking about it.
That's right. So rather than you forcing the learning onto them, they're finding a route for themselves to take themselves that much further. How do you feel about letting them go out?
I trust them, they know I trust them,
Yes.
and I think we've got that respect in the class.
I think that
we've
is very
worked on.
clear that you trust them and they
Yeah.
know that they have to perform for
Yeah.
you. It's good to see Louis and Chloe, they're knowing exactly what to do when they go to the library. I think that's just the way we've sort of brought them up in school, isn't it? The time we
It
spent in teaching them those library skills
definitely.
and how to behave in the library and what the expectations there are.
I think we'll take this one back. Some people might want to write some things about that.
Take
in
this
their
one as
books.
well, so
Yeah.
about the eyes.
Do you use the ICT suite a lot for your references?
Yes, they use the computers as
That's
often
right.
as they wish.
And Dylan knew exactly which sites he needed to go. He was having a chat with Charlotte and they were agreeing on which sites to go first. They used the revised site. And some of them said SEM learning.
Yes, they're sites that we use generally for revision
Right.
in Year 6, and they're encouraged to use outside of school as
Yes,
well.
yeah.
So when the sun reflects onto an object, the object reflects in your eyes. It doesn't have to be shiny.
And also the people there in the classroom, they're talking about things together and helping and supporting each other along the way as well.
Yes.
I like the way the whole class are listening to each other and respecting each other's ideas. I can remember them when they were in year 2 and how you had to tell them to stop and listen what their partner says before jumping in.
The area I know best is research in conceptual understanding in science education. The last 20 years of research has shown pupils are full of ideas they can write out in terms of definitions and formulae. When asked what they mean, they produce all sorts of odd things. In terms of the robustness and toughness of the learning experience, a peer assessment group is a much harder place to work at than many teacher-to-pupil classrooms, and rightly so, and yet one where there is support if pupils are trained to respect one another. So I would say this is a tough and effective learning environment.
I'm going to ask Mohammed to come up because he's right at the front, so it's nice and easy then.
I've got sources of light, and natural and artificial.
So at the end of the lesson, I brought them all together and chose Mohammed and Jodie both to show their work.
Yes.
And I think it's important for others to be able to see
some good pieces.
Well, light bounces off objects into your eyes, so that's why in the dark you cannot see because there's no light to bounce into your eyes.
It doesn't always have to be good pieces, to see what other people have got, and even if it's just the way it's presented, to help develop everybody else's ideas for next time round. And I think that's really important.
If I was to ask you to hold your
And then you moved on to the traffic lights there, isn't it, to review today's learning.
I think it's important, again, so that I can see clearly who has got it, who hasn't got it.
How do you feel you have worked today? Let's just see a show of cards.
There was so much on task and learning from each other. That's why we can see so many green cards there.
Yes.
So that tells you. But here there's an amber one, and you picked on Joseph to explain.
Okay, most of us had green up there. Joe, I noticed that you had amber. Can you feed back to us why you're not on green yet, or where you think you still need to go to get to green?
Well, I don't really understand like the bouncing off the mirror and all that type of thing.
So it's the reflection part of it you're not so sure of yet. Was reflection something we were focusing on today?
I'd spoken to him during the lesson and I knew that he had been on task, and I was pretty sure that he did understand everything that he needed to. And that's why I wanted to question him and make sure that he did understand. And then I realised, obviously, that he had gone one step ahead.
And that's why he was still amber.
That's why he was still amber.
So the bit that you're amber on, it means you've gone one step ahead of us, and that's something that we'll be working on in the next session. Okay, well done, Joe.
He felt confident amongst all his class group to identify as the only person who was on that amber still. And it's lovely to see the way you've turned it around and said, yes, you are green and you went through the success criteria, and he admitted that yes, he was green on all those, but it was the next step that he was amber. That was really good the way you did that, Julia. You turned his amber into a green as well.
Okay, well done everyone. I'm really pleased with how today's lesson's gone. Next time in science we'll be moving on to reflection. Well done, you've all done really, really well.
I think it was a really good piece of learning today. Well done.